So this play focuses on the United States Radium Corporation's plant in Orange, New Jersey. In the 1910s, during World War I, there were hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of young women who were hired to use a radium paint to paint the numbers on watch dials. And these numbers were super tiny that actually would go down to the size of your thumbnail. And so the women were taught to point the brushes with their lips. Now, at this point in history, most people did not know that radium was dangerous. There were very, very few people who were aware of this. And so years down the line, the war ends, but radium has become this whole miracle drug. It's being sold in beauty products. It's being sold in water. It's being sold as like a health supplement. The wellness industry just took off with it, and radium is everywhere. Well, suddenly all of these women who were employed as dial painters, the youngest one being 11 years old, so children, start getting really sick and their bones start hurting, and the most of the issues was in their jaw. They start having teeth removed. Very young women my age, I'm 22, start having their teeth removed. Some women, there's one woman who had a tumor that was her entire, it was like a baseball, but bigger, like a melon on her head. These women all start getting sick and they all start dying these horrific, horrific deaths. And it comes out that it was because of the radium, that they had been poisoned by their workplace. And so our play focuses on the lawsuit of Grace Fryer and Catherine Schaub against USRC and Arthur Roeder, who was the president of USRC at the time, as they fight to get their compensation and to also make sure that this doesn't happen to anybody else. Because of these women, we know that radium is super dangerous, and we actually have a lot of workers' rights because of this women. OSHA was a big effect from all of that. Anyone, if you've ever gotten scanned for cancer, a lot of that knowledge and that research came from studying these women. And unfortunately, there was no cure for the women at the time. This lawsuit took almost the entire 1920s, and they died just a few years later. But these were hundreds and hundreds of women. And when they went to the company and it was proven that it was the radium, the company, rather than taking accountability and giving them their compensation, actually chose to tear a page out of a scientific report that one page clears the company and pass it off as the entire report. So the women did end up winning the lawsuit. They did end up getting compensation, but the company never faced any criminal charges for what they did to these women and then lying about it. They used the time that they had left to fight against this company to get their compensation, but also to make sure that this never happened to anybody else. And that, I think, is really what makes them brave, right? Because they didn't choose to be poisoned, they didn't choose to die, but they chose to use the time that they had to make it better for others. My whole MO as a director is that I want to provide roles for people, especially women, that are well written and deep. I think as women, and this is kind of why I started directing in the first place, was I had noticed that in the theater industry at large, but specifically at the time, like at my school, there had been a pattern of the roles for women in the shows being chosen were essentially objects. And, being a showgirl is fun, but not all the time. And that's not what I went to school for. And so it started out of a growing frustration from that and the way that women were treated in theater, the kinds of roles we get to play. There's only so many times I want to play a dumb, ditzy friend, or a showgirl, or a dancer, or whatever it is, or a love interest, before I'm like, what am I taking all these acting classes for, right? So I wanted to, as a director, create space for actresses to be able to play roles that are well written and are actual people and actually feel important. And I'm also very inspired by historical stories. I think truth is always more interesting to see than fiction. And I think that any question we have when it comes to the future, we can usually find the answer by looking into the past, because while the tools that we have change and the knowledge that we have is constantly growing because we build off of past generations, humans really don't change. And the feelings that we feel really don't change. The arguments that we have really don't change. And so when I first heard this story, there was something so familiar about it to me, because I'm reading these things about, the doctors not really listening to the women when they first go in, and the company putting profits over the health of its workers. And I was like, this shouldn't be as familiar to me as it is. And that tells me that this story needs to be told. I chose to have this in a really small space because I wanted the audience to not feel separate from the story. When you're in a traditional proscenium style theater, right, you're away from it. You can separate yourself emotionally from this. I don't want audience members to be able to separate themselves emotionally from this, because we are not separate from this story. Everything that has happened in history is infused in what we do every day, right? The statute of limitations was extended because of these women. If you've ever had a cancer screening, or been treated for cancer, if you've ever worked a job where you had to do harmful chemical training, all of that stuff is because of these women. And I think when we think about history, it's really easy to put a divider up and be like, oh, this would never happen. Or, oh, but that happened so long ago, it doesn't affect us anymore. Yes, it does, because everything builds. I was thinking this is gonna not make sense. Just trust me on this. There's this thing called perpetual stew, which is where you take a big pot and you make a giant pot of stew. And as you eat it, more ingredients get put in, but the stew is never run out. It's never completely taken out. And I think that that's a lot of what culture and society and just the human experience is. We're in the same pot that these women were in. I blocked very specifically so that every side of the audience, as you can see, you can't see because you're stationary, but imagine with your mind, or come see it for yourself. We have audience members on 3 out of 4 sides. So every side will get a little something special. Everything has been blocked very intentionally to allow for optimal viewing from all sides. I think when people who don't go to the theater super often think of the theater, they think of the really flashy, tap dancing musicals and the really fluffy stuff. And this isn't what this is. This on stage is truth, it's history, and it's real life. It's not what you typically think of when you think of going to see a play or going to see a musical. So I think people who maybe don't typically go to see the theater, this could be something, it's like watching a movie in real life, a drama movie, a lot of glow in the dark stuff.